నమస్కారం. నా ఈ ప్రయత్నం మీకు నచ్చినట్లయితే గనక మన ఛానల్‌ని సబ్స్క్రైబ్ చేసుకొని పై జాబితాలోని మరిన్ని వీడియోలను చూడటం ద్వారా మీ నైపుణ్యాలను, జ్ఞానాన్ని కూడా అభివృద్ధి చేసుకోవడానికి ప్రయత్నించండి. జై హింద్. Please like, share and subscribe for more videos. Thank you.
In this last video, I wanted to show you one of the other main things where computers lack upon compared to humans. And in my opinion, that currently, it might change very quickly with AlphaZero, because I've looked at some of AlphaZero's games and he does see a lot of long-term attacking potential. But lots of the other computers don't always see the long-term attacking potential in a position. And they can be a little bit too obsessed with winning points rather than having a sense of danger. A sense of danger which I'd say that humans instinctively do have. I mean, what have computers got to be afraid of? They certainly don't have to be afraid of death because, only a human can turn their switch off, I guess, but a program can live forever. Us humans, we have to be afraid of many more things. And I think that is one thing we got to bear in mind when we're playing. When we're playing, even if a computer suggests a line, if it looks really scary and we have to dodge a lot of bullets, it might not be the right way to play, even if it does give us a big advantage, because humans play differently to computers, and that's one thing people forget. You can play gambit lines, which computers don't like, because when you're playing other humans, they will not play like a computer. Now, I've got two examples here. The first one is an example from the Caro-Kann opening, and this is an example where computers have historically misassessed the opening in black's favor when it's actually very much in white's favor. And we're just going to show this game and explain how computers can get assessments wrong in certain attacking lines. So let's start with e4, and we're looking at this from the white point of view, and the computer, let's say, is black, plays c6, d4, and now we have the advanced Caro-Kann with e5, and we now have h4, which I believe is called the Shirov variation of the Caro-Kann. Black plays h5, stopping any g4 malarkey. Bishop to g5 now, trying to stop the black e-pawn from moving, and now queen to b6. This is allowing the e-pawn to move and also targeting the pawn on b2. Now, if you run this position on any high-level engine, well, this is any high-level engine I've done has done this. The engine now wants to defend this pawn from the white point of view. It wants to play a move such as b3 or even bishop to c1. But there is a much better option, and the much better option here is bishop to d3. And bishop to d3 is a move that white can play which the computer really just does not like, and it gives now an advantage, my program, nearly a whole pawn to black. After the variation, bishop takes d3 and queen takes b2. And yet again here, the computer does not understand the attacking potential that white has. And there's a move here that splits black's position in two. And that move is e6, offering the rook on a1, but in order to start an attack against the black king. And there's a number of incredibly dangerous lines here. I mean, if black takes on e6, we have a number of good options, but knight to f3 is one very strong move. And look at black's king side, it's very hard to develop. And I think a human can see the compensation here, but it takes a lot longer for a computer to. And in the game, well, the other option after e6 is clearly to take the rook. And only after taking the rook on a1 and black now facing queen to b3, there are other interesting options there, I should note. You can go all out for an attack with pawn takes f7. But if you do play queen to b3, only now does the computer suddenly drastically work out the attacking potential that white has. It didn't see it when it was critical. It's only spotted the danger when it's too late. Black has gone into this variation. Black has taken a pawn and a rook. Black has gone 6 points up. He can't back down now, but only now does my computer realize and change its assessment to that black is in trouble. Let's have a look at some variations. Well, b5 is one idea, but queen takes d4 should be looked at first. But here white can play something like bishop to e3, attacking the queen. And after the queen moves, queen takes b7 and queen takes a8 with a phenomenal attack. And you can run this yourself, but white's a lot better. Another line after queen b3 is b5, trying to stop white from coming to b7. But now white just plays knight to f3. And after a5, castle's kingside. And after something like pawn takes e6, knight on b to d2, winning the queen. And after an exchange on f1, white's position is much to be preferred because of this move e6. The white queen has access into squares like g6. The white knights can come flying in to like squares like e5. So that's one case when computers completely misassess the attacking potential in a position. Let's now bring up the second example of this. And this is a well-known case in the second game that I have prepared here. And we're going to look at this game from the black side. And this is in one of the main variations in chess, the main line King's Indian defense. Now, I'm not doing an opening repertoire here, so we'll go through the moves quite quickly. But the King's Indian defense is where black basically fianchettos the bishop on g7 and brings out the knight. So black gives away a lot of space, and we're taking one of my own games to explore this. After white grabs the whole center with e4, it may look like white is doing very well traditionally, and computers love having a space advantage, but they don't always see the potential of attacks and also pawn breaks. This is another thing, long-term pawn breaks they miss. And the main line King's Indian defense is when both sides develop pretty naturally. White has to face this first pawn break, and after some more natural moves, we get a position, as I did in the game, such as this. And this is a world-famous position. And again, computers always favor white in these positions. But as a human, this is one position I would never want to play as white. Why? And let's understand this from a human point of view. White is attacking on the queen side. We've got to look at pawn breaks because the center is locked. So this is where we should be looking, where we have pawn breaks. White's pawn break is c5. White is attacking on the queen side. Black's pawn break is going to be g5, and black is attacking on the king side. Now, as a human, I want to checkmate. Where is my opponent's king? It's on the king side. But computers don't always see the long-term danger of having the white king here and black coming forwards. And basically, I would say computer programs really think the King's Indian defense, this position, is losing for black with the assessments they give. But such great players as Bobby Fischer and Garry Kasparov have played this position throughout their career, and they are really two of the most exciting and greatest world champions we've ever had. So who do you believe? Do you believe the computer? Would you play this as white? Or do you believe the human? Would you play this as black? Now, I played g5, and we both continued naturally with our breaks. I started to move my pieces nearer to the white king. And here, a typical defensive move in chess. You have to defend and attack. And this is a very good defensive idea. I want to defend this square c7, but I also, after bishop f8, want to line up my rook, watch where that rook is going to go, towards my enemy's king. a4, and now h5, getting ready to break. a5, and my bishop comes around. And now here, again, just an example of how wrong computers can be. My very strong computer gives the move c6 as its main idea, but in my eyes this is a losing move, because after I played b6 we're combining things from our other videos. I have blockaded the position down, and white has no pawn breaks on the queen side. If he takes on b6, there's no way through. And I'm going to play g4, and I have my attack coming on the king side. The computer does not understand the latent and long-term attacking potential. So my opponent, being a human, played knight d3, and now I just went knight to f6, preparing g4. And g4 is my main break. And even here, the computer thinks white's winning, but, you know, well, pretty much with its assessment. But after a couple more moves, b4, it still thinks that white is better here. But after bishop d7, my assessment as a grandmaster and looking at the great games and understanding the great games of Bobby Fischer and Garry Kasparov, and I've studied those games, is that white is completely lost here. I assess this as winning for black because no longer can white get in on the queen side. Knight b5 is not possible. I'm one move away from breaking with g4, and then my attack will come. And I completely disagree with any computer that says white's better. I think white is generally lost here. And this is where a computer will struggle against a human. And the game continued to prove that point. h3, I played g4 anyway. And my opponent took on g4, winning a pawn. And now knight to h7, making way for my queen and my knight to come in to the king side. My opponent tried to defend, bishop to e1. My knight comes in. I'm just going to maneuver all my pieces towards my enemy's king because my pieces are positioned excellently over on the king side. I also have a very good pawn on f4, could be used for the attack. Knight to f2, rook h7, taking the open line. Queen to d3, and now I sacrifice a second pawn, f3, because I want the f4 square for my knight. Bishop takes f3, knight to f4. My pieces are basically swarming over the white king. Queen to d1, and now my queen needs to join in the attack. Queen to f6, trying to come to h6 and down into h2 with checkmate. And here, bishop e7. I bring in all of my pieces, and eventually, as we will see, there is nothing white can do. White's king is stuck like a rabbit in the headlights of a car. Unfortunately, it's going to be in serious trouble. Well, not unfortunately for me. Knight d1, my bishop comes in, and all of my moves are very natural. I'm just bringing in attacking pieces. I'm aiming all my pieces at my opponent's king. I'm maximizing the potential of every single piece. My opponent is now threatened with bishop h2, leading to checkmate. He tries g3. I simply eliminate there, and I come back to h4. Rook c2, and now bishop to a4. Just annoying the rook and maybe taking the knight, getting rid of a last defender. And now bishop h2 check does come. I bring my last piece into the attack, which is the rook on a8. Really, I want all my pieces getting the most harmonious action they can. And now my bishop comes back, and the check on g3 is terminal when I combine it with bishop g4. And this last move is too much for my opponent. My opponent resigns. He can't take on g4 because I will take on f2. All of my pieces are attacking, and the attack kind of played itself. So again, the King's Indian defense is just one example when computers maybe misassess the situation and they don't see the long-term attacking power. Now, I did say, what tips have I got for computers? Because computers obviously have revolutionized our game of chess. When I started playing, you know, when I was, let's say I started playing my first tournaments at 8 years old, there were no strong computers about. You had to analyze with your own mind. Then computers came along, and we should, as scientists now do in every area of academia and in science and you know, everything, we should use computers as our friends. We should try to use them to help us develop and become better people, better chess players in the case of a chess player. But we certainly shouldn't rely on them for everything. That, you know, computers are not infallible. And we've got to remember that. We've got to rely on our own mind. We've got to be confident in our own abilities. We've got to have our own views on a position. A famous story which I had is I went to a tournament in Vienna, beautiful tournament at the town hall, with another grandmaster friend of mine and a weaker player friend who was only about 1700. We got in a routine after the game of having a bottle of wine, sitting outside and looking at the games on a board. Me and my grandmaster friend wouldn't use a computer. We'd just suggest ideas. We'd say, what about here? What about here? All verbal. Our friend had his eyes fixed to the computer on his phone. He would say, if we suggested a move, he'd be saying, well, my computer says minus 0.21. That's not a good move. And we'd be saying, turn your computer off. And eventually we nearly ended up grabbing his phone and throwing it across the square into the nearest, well, I would say water feature, and there's a lot of them in Vienna. But the moral is this guy would not improve because he was so transfixed on what his phone said and what the computer said on his phone. He didn't actually learn anything himself. He didn't use his own mind. He didn't try to work things out himself. So all I'm trying to say is use the computers to point you in the right direction. Use computers sometimes in very tactical positions because they are much stronger than us and they can calculate more deeply. Use them in openings. Use them for a lot, but don't rely on them 100%. And I hope you enjoyed this course, this premium video course. Maybe we will have a look in future at how to use computers in the right way in more depth. But for now, there's plenty of features on chess.com that can help you there. Thank you so much. I will keep an eye on your comments below, and hopefully I'll be back for more videos in the future. Bye for now.